The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
Hey everybody, welcome to Canary Cry News Talk. It is February 6th, 2019. This week, swarms of robots are taking over. My name is Gonz. The regular co-host of the show, Basil, who is a time traveler, tends to come in and out of our timeline, so he happens to be out of the timeline this week, but he will return back next week. In the meantime, we do have the sound clips here. Yeah. And our long goal.
You're going down, Olstein!
Still working on that one. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend, and I'm sure you guys were all on the edge of your seats watching the big game. I know I certainly wasn't. I caught part of the game, but I could care less about NFL and football and all that. I didn't watch any of the commercials, although I saw the reaction come in from everybody talking about, oh yeah, look at all the robots on the commercials. So let me just dive right into the stories here, because this whole episode is dedicated to all the robots that are out there now. And quite literally, I mean, we've been tracking Flippy and everything else, but they seem to have revealed themselves. It was almost like a robot coming out party this past weekend at the Super Bowl. And, the more fleshly kind were still, into the game, the human game, these primitive things called football. But anyway, so Fox News reported that robots' lead role in Super Bowl ads hint at tech anxieties. And it says, add commercial actor to the list of jobs assumed by robots. Brands often rely on familiar celebrities when creating their pricey Super Bowl ads, but many of their protagonists during Sunday night's game were anything but human. Sprint Corp, Anheuser-Busch, InBev, SA's, Michelob Ultra, Intuit Inc.'s TurboTax, and Simple Safe Inc. were among the Super Bowl advertisers, with commercials featuring robots in key parts, a creative trend that reflects the mood and anxieties of a society confronted with a new, life-altering technology and artificial intelligence. So there you go, Fox News highlighting this deliberate focus on robots and just AI in general. And obviously we've been tracking that the whole time, and we've seen it coming, but here it is. It's really hitting the mainstream. And here we are in our little corner still saying, see it's happening. And it's funny because a lot of people still don't really get it. It's all over the headlines. And speaking of headlines, make sure to visit canarycrynewstalk.com each week. We have our assistant. Her name is Jen, and she does an awesome job of collecting all of these stories that pertain to our little niche here every week. And so do go check it out, and you'll be able to, see all the list of stories that we can, Basil and I get to choose from as we report to you guys each week through the podcast. And so let me just read some headlines here, because the robot section each week is just huge. This week alone, San Antonio's dancing robot land America's Got Talent shine for upcoming season. You have, and I reported this on the YouTube channel with a 50-second video. Kylie Jenner had her makeup done by AI robots for the cover of Dazed Beauty. And I mean, it's literally one eye smudged down, and the whole, the classic one eye thing. I mean, come on, it's just so obvious. Here's a roundup of all the Super Bowl ads about robots and AI, which we just talked about here, but that was a Forbes article. Creepy-Crawly machines may be the world's tiniest four-legged robot. A report from Digital Trends. Another video I did on the YouTube channel today. You can now buy Sophia the robot's little sister, which is basically this little Sophia robot targeted to 7 and 13, the ages between 7 and 13, mainly girls, it said, which was interesting. And it teaches them actually how to code because they get to learn, I can't remember one of the languages, but the other one was Python, which is a pretty common coding language to code this robot. So again, the ethical questions of, should this be something is this something we should be doing, or is it something that we should totally avoid? Because look, the future, it kind of depends on the generations coming up here to really build these machines. And so their ethics and morality are going to be very important in how these machines are literally constructed and literally take over some of the more mundane aspects of human conduct, which is just crazy, but that's just where we're headed. Let's see. We also have mind-controlled robot lets you weld metal without using your hands. And let me just dig into this one briefly here. Welding is going hands-free. A mind-controlled robot can weld metal together after receiving metal instructions from its operator. The person controlling the robot wears an encephalography, EEG. I probably butchered that one, which measures the brain's electrical activity via the scalp. They then look at a screen that has several pre-selected metal seams for the robot to weld. Each option on the screen flickers in turn, and the operator stares at their choice. When their chosen option flickers, it generates a specific electrical response in the brain detectable by the EEG. So a little bit of a learning curve on how to operate it with your mind, but certainly using your eyes, this is pretty interesting. This is, literally where we're headed here, where brain signals and things like that, where we can practice and use, are able to control machines and much more intense hardware. Getting back to some of these headlines here, making new drugs with a dose of artificial intelligence, another New York Times article, and then a extreme tech article, new Star Trek-like replicator prints 3D objects with light, and an autonomous robot swarm has self-organized by acting like natural cells. And actually, we'll take a look at that in a second here. Actually, we'll just go there now. This is a MIT review article. And again, the headline, an autonomous robot swarm has self-organized by acting like natural cells. Hundreds of tiny robots have been made to work as a team, inspired by the biological principles of self-organization. The study researchers have managed to get swarms of 300 robots to self-organize without following a preset pattern. The only programming each coin-size robot received was some basic rules on how to communicate via infrared with its neighbors. The inspiration, the robots were programmed to act like cells in a tissue. These genetic rules mimic the system responsible for so-called Turing patterns in nature, such as a leopard's spot. What's new, of course, this isn't the first artificial robot swarm. However, past swarms have had their final shape predefined by researchers. Quote, what's fascinating is there is no master plan. These shapes emerge as a result of simple interactions between the robots, says Sabine Howart from Bristol University's robotics lab, who was part of the study. So this is sort of the age-old question, right? If there is no predetermined shape, and you just let these things communicate randomly, and then they form these shapes. Are these random? What if there's a pattern that emerges? What is it? You know what I'm saying? What are the bigger implications here? Is it tapping into some sort of other force that we can't measure or we're not measuring? These are all questions that come to bear when you start looking at these non-defined, no master plan, just programmed to do a certain thing, which is communicate. And then the rest of it, you let the artificial intelligence take over and create these designs. And again, you can probably tie this into the breakdown of physical reality with the digital medium that we've been talking about here. So, this swarm thing is pretty nuts. If you want to take a look at it, we'll leave links. Again, all these articles you can take a look at the canarycrynewstalk.com website, and you'll see the ag there. Some weeks we missed some ags a couple weeks here, in the last few, but for the most part, you'll get a list of a bunch of links to all these stories like this one. And there's a sound clip that we always play here if I can get to it now.
Blockchain.
The blockchain and robots. What do they have in common? Well, according to Crypto Globe, 5 aspects of city life set to be changed by blockchain-powered robots. Okay, so, we haven't talked about blockchain and crypto in a while here. We have a little update for this episode because it touches robots and how robots will affect it. And I'm not going to really read it. I'll just get to the list here. Basically, let me just set it up here. The tokenization of asset is expected to be one of the main trends in 2019. Anything from a pizza delivery service to an artwork can be subjected to tokenization. Together with AI development, tokenization gives mankind an opportunity to order goods and services carried out by autonomous machines and pay with tokens for the work completed. Here we take a glance at 5 facets of urban life that may be changed by the combination of digitized assets and blockchain. Number 1, supply chains. So obviously a supply chain. Robots, should we give robot rights to make decisions and to dispose of small amounts of money, namely tokens? They'll be able to, using things like Ethereum, the robots will basically be the ones conducting the smart contracts and moving the money around and doing all the accounting and everything else. And so, we've talked about this, the decentralized autonomous organization, these robot machine AIs basically doing all the human management. And supply chains is one facet where it's completely obvious and it completely makes sense. If you're in an industry that requires supply chain, I mean, it's just the most obvious thing. It's like, of course you want to track everything that you have that with in your inventory, in your line of all the goods and even services that you have to go through for your business. Product origin, number 2, scandals are all over the place. We just had it. There was another story that, we won't get into, but basically the headline, it was a crypto related story where, I believe there was somebody who ran an exchange, and this guy who held apparently the private keys to all of the money for the exchange died, and now they can't find the wife can't figure out the private keys, and they can't access this money. I think it was $190 million that was sort of trapped in this account, and but this is the beauty of the blockchain, if you want to call it that, is that you can look at the money. You can see the wallets of these people. And if you can tie the people to the identity, then obviously it's pretty obvious who owns that wallet. And you can see the money moving in and out. And apparently, and this is what I've just heard over the, all the different reports, the money was being moved. Certain amounts of money were being trickled out of these accounts that were allegedly locked up and the private keys lost forever. So these scandals tend to happen right in front of our faces here through the blockchain. I mean, maybe there's some repercussions later as they are able to, bring some sort of legislation into all of this craziness that's happening. But this is part of it, that, this authenticity thing. So product origin is part of that, where if a machine does the stamp, the robots make the stamp, this is, the origin of this product or this, concept or whatever it is, then boom, you have the right. It is there forever. It is verified by the robots forevermore. It's like this crazy, weird concept that, it all relates. And this is how this blockchain and robots will change the infrastructure of how we communicate, how we live, how we exchange everything. And this is just leading right to the mark of the beast. If you think about it, all the highways for the mark of the beast system to work need to be constructed, and we are watching it being constructed right now, which is nuts. Number 3, consumer behavior analysis. Now, this is pretty self-explanatory. I don't want to really get into it. They check out your behavior, and they're able to, tailor some of the things they suggest based on our behavior, the things we tend to repeat. And again, that's been the whole ethical question, right? Now robots take over that whole concept, and look, robots are slaves now. They are both, they do things that humans need, but they also serve the man by trying to tailor all of the digital goods to what we tend to want or need according to their data. Number 4, environmental monitoring. This one I thought was interesting. So now we basically have robots that are able to collect all this data about your environment, whether it be chemicals in your water or in the air or whatever it is. If there's a fire, the temperature, all these aspects can now be tracked by these machines. And now these robots can make decisions based on that, especially if they are programmed by institutions of world governance to, conduct or abide by these certain subsets of rules, or be, eliminated, or whatever it is. I mean, it's nuts. This is basically what's taking place, is this whole new society of this technological, it is the technocracy being built, and this is how it's being built. This is part of it. This basically becomes an environmental monitoring system that both can track your data about you and all your behavior within that medium, but also your environment. And so, if you're being wasteful, maybe, it just watches you and sees that you produce too much trash. You need to cut back, and then it cuts your salary or something. It's just nuts. This is the world we're going to head into. Number 5, opening new markets. And this is, what the entrepreneurs and everybody is starting to really trickle into this industry of blockchain, changing all kinds of industries. And certainly, again, new markets, things that we don't even understand, the types of companies and I'm thinking institutions, and even just the basic underlying infrastructure of the financial system itself. The emerging thing is just completely different. And so we don't know exactly how it's going to look, but in my opinion, based on biblical prophecy, we will see certain elements, whether they be corporations or nations or both, that will rise and become prominent and have characteristics that reflect the different animals that we see, and eventually become this controlled under one system, which it's really kind of a harvesting, because it's always been that Antichrist spirit conducting the emergence of this technology, in my opinion. And so, but along the way, it's not so black and white. There's obviously positive things that have to take place in physical reality to progress that agenda. So it's been this back and forth, what L.A. Marzulli calls the cosmic chess match. So in any case, it's a little ramble side trail there, but that's 5 things that will change in the aspects of life powered by blockchain robots.
Blockchain.
Okay, so what else did I have in mind here? Oh, this is the other article here, Forbes.com. This was actually in response to the recent New York Times article. The headline, Meet Bertie, Heliograph, and Cyborg, the new journalists on the block. And I don't think that's necessarily blockchain, although maybe there is a little bit of a double meaning thing going there. An article in New York Times, quote, the rise of the robot reporter discusses the new machine learning tools such as Forbes' content management system called Bertie, the Washington Post's Heliograph, Bloomberg's Cyborg, and others used by Reuters and Associated Press and The Guardian for a range of tasks in their newsrooms, providing further insight into how robots are taking over a growing number of jobs. As the article points out, a number of media, notably those with a financial focus, now use algorithms to analyze data such as quarterly earnings reports, and that can then be used to chart their progress over time, detect anomalies, as well as writing up stories. Machine learning can now be put to a growing number of uses in the newsroom. I've seen journalists use powerful analytical tools to analyze graphs, write and document their articles, adding information from different sources, as well as identifying information that may come from suspicious sources. It is hardly surprising that Bloomberg and Reuters now compete to provide real-time financial information with the same hedge funds that were previously their clients, but that now have access to the same means and resources. The difficulties began when we begin to talk about replacement, a robot that is given the hard data of a soccer game and is then capable, based on a series of parameters, to write a story could replicate a journalist. An algorithm can analyze the quarterly accounts of a company ad nauseum, does not skip a section because it seems uninteresting, and does not miss a small detail that can indicate an irregularity. Such an algorithm could possibly then write up a better story than the journalist it replaces. Does this mean that newsrooms will now be staffed entirely by robots, that journalism schools will close, and that legions of journalists will have to find new careers? Not for the moment, anyway, but reporters unable to evolve from covering a soccer match or writing a story about a company's quarterly results toward more added value tasks, and who see algorithms as threat rather than a tool to help them, will find themselves surplus to requirements. The availability of increasingly powerful tools should be a wake-up call to journalists to acquire the skills to take advantage of them to the limit or to push those limits, and to learn to do things that were not possible even a few years ago. I do not see the media going fully automated anytime soon, and while many journalists will be laid off, I also see a new role for journalists based on a different, more sophisticated, and more powerful approach, like podcasts. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, this is true. This is, the basics. We've talked about how some articles that we've even read seem like they've been compiled by robots, or at least, maybe it was bad translation. But we know that in sports and things like that, we already have machines doing, taking the data from the game or whatever and just spitting out this basic the overview of the game, because they don't need any commentary necessarily. They just want the facts of what happened in the game. That's something that an AI machine can do now pretty easily. We don't need people to sit there and think of those things. We need people to be more creative. We want their opinions and the outrage and things like that. That's why, because some of these more mundane things are becoming obsolete. And it's just interesting that we see this even reflected in this Forbes response to that New York Times article, talking about how all these news agencies are already using robots, which means the robots are already programming the masses with their algorithms. Yes, the humans created the algorithms, but now these algorithms are taking the information of the people and reconstructing something that they will find appealing to accept a worldview that will lead to, I think, biblical prophecy, prophetic level events. It's all becoming pretty obvious and in our faces. And I wanted to hit on one more story. This one is from The Verge. Google hired micro workers to train its controversial project Maven AI. And we actually talked about Maven a few months ago. I think it was September or October in 2018. And, we've kept an eye on some of these developments at Google. But this is Google's dealing with the Pentagon. And The Verge just published this article on the 4th of February in 2019. And it says, according to a new report from The Intercept, Google hired gig economy workers to help build out a controversial artificial intelligence program that the company had paired with the Pentagon to build. The workers were hired through a crowdsourcing gig company outfit called Figure 8. And remember, 8 is the infinite loop, the Ouroboros, snake eating its own tail, which pays as little as $1 an hour for people to perform short, seemingly mindless tasks. Whether the individuals were identifying objects in CAPTCHA-like images or other simple tasks, the workers were helping to train Google's AI that was created as part of a Defense Department initiative known as Project Maven. Project Maven is a Pentagon project intended to use machine learning and artificial intelligence in order to differentiate people and objects in thousands of hours of drone footage. Thousands of hours of drone footage of what? Of us? By employing these crowdsourced micro workers, Google was able to use them to teach the algorithms it was running how to distinguish between human targets and surrounding objects. According to The Intercept, these workers had no idea who their work was benefiting or what they were building. Last June, Google said it had decided not to renew its contract with the Defense Department as it involved Project Maven after over 3,000 employees signed a petition in protest of the company's involvement in the initiative. The deal is set to end in March 2019. Figure 8, which was previously known as Crowdflower, is one of the largest platforms that employs micro workers. On its website, Figure 8 says its platform, quote, combines human intelligence at scale. That's an interesting way to put it. With cutting-edge models to create the highest quality training data for your machine learning projects. Interesting. It's kind of like we're just using the dumb part of the humans to create the AI. It's very bizarre. By partnering with these micro worker outfits, Google could quickly and cheaply build out its AI, taking advantage of the people. Okay, it says, quote, you upload your data to our platform and we provide the annotations, judgments, and labels you need to create accurate ground truth for your models, the website reads. Oh, really? So there you have it. This is Project Maven, again, being rehashed here on the Verge article, and it just ends there. I mean, it's just like, okay, yep, people are not happy about it, and it's going to end in March. And what? They got their AI, they can finish the public project, or what's going on? They don't tell us anything. So there you have it, Project Maven. Maybe the reason why we're seeing so much AI and robots now in the Super Bowl and things like that is because projects like Maven and other AI systems are ready to go. They're ready to really start to interact with humanity at a tangible level, and it's basically the whole, it's two things, right? You have the machines that are sitting there saying,
we have to evolve.
And then it's also whispering into our ears.
Are you ready to become cyborg?
It's both, so we have to watch out for all this stuff because yes, it's going to help us and it's going to make things efficient and transparent and much more, just better, more honest systems could be, in theory, constructed with a lot of these technologies and these services that these mini robot AIs are going to provide. At the same time, we become so reliant on them, it's going to really mess with us especially if it goes down, the technology, the communication devices all go down in some kind of, attack, EMP attack or something else. But, short of that and short of the return of Christ, we have to deal with this stuff. It's all over the place. So there's really no escaping it. You can move to someplace rural, but eventually they're going to get you, So that's why it's sort of that, spiritual battle here. The reality of the situation, I think, is much more tangible in the sense that it's spiritual. This is not a carnal thing only, right? We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. Yes, we are here in the flesh and blood, but there's more to it than that, right? So in any case, that's all we have the time for this episode. We're going to dive into some things in the extended report. And let me just make sure to remind you guys to tell your friends about Canary Cry News Talk. Rattle their cages.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
War never changes. The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
Yeah, that's right. We were right. Thank you for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Make sure to tune in next time. But until then, think outside the cage.